Good evening, and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the Think Show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find his way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous1. And tonight we're going to talk about something that really plays the community a lot. When you know better, you got to do better. Your mama tell you that when you learn how to walk. When you know better, you got to do better. And what's going around in the community that's bringing a whole bunch of confusion, especially to those who are trying to wake up and find their way. You can't set out to confuse them at the outset. You'll pay for that. Fictitious identities. What are fictitious identities? Fictitious identities could be a corporation. Calling yourself something that you're not. Calling yourself something that you don't represent in order to trick somebody into thinking that's what it is when it's not. Fictitious identities are the identities that have us looking like we're confused. We don't know. This is the best we can do. This is the best we can teach our children. There's a much better way. And here to talk about that tonight is Miss Lizzie Cypress from the Accomack Nation, Virginia, Eastern Shore.
Kayuk, thank you for having me here. Kayuk, everyone in the chat. So glad to be here. Yeah, that's quite a topic. Fictitious identities. What are those fictitious identities? Does anyone in the chat, do you have a question about what might be a fictitious identity? What do you think? What do you think, the Indigenous one? What do you
I
think?
think they already know. So the first one to throw out these fictitious identities, the first one to throw out, will use that and make an example out of that. But this will cover all of them. So whoever throws out one of these fictitious identities that the community runs around and try to be.
Oh, okay. She threw out black. Black. All right. Bertha Washington said black. Okay.
Bertha, you don't look black to me. You ain't black.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, we use black, right? Black is, what is black? What is black? What is it, black, the Indigenous one? Explain
Nothing.
black to me.
Nothing. When
nothing.
You close your eyes, you see nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You might see the pictures dancing around in your head. But other than that, it's lights out, baby.
Right. Nothing. So when people go around saying that they're black, black American, black Indian, what are they really saying? What are they really saying?
Hold on. Let's and see. This is what I'm saying. It's a descriptive term. So if you're describing me as black and I'm not black, I'm confused in the description.
Let's want to put a link in the chat.
Yeah, let me put a link to the group in the chat so you can come on and explain yourself. Because a lot of times we just be saying stuff and we don't be knowing what we saying. So you got to explain it to me. Hit me with it.
That'll work.
Because, yeah, I mean, explain it.
Black is not a race. That's for sure. Black is not a country. There's no nation. Black nation.
Tyron Lou is in the house.
What up, Kerry? It's been a while.
What's happening, man?
Yeah, these guys out here still maintaining them fictitious ethnicities or identities. Like, you got in some groups, you got people still holding on to that Africa Black stuff, and now they getting away from saying Africa Black, and now they call themselves Sub-Saharans and Bantus based on DNA. Or you got people still holding on to that Hebrew stuff and believing that they fictional Bible characters, and you still got people arguing people over the word Aborigine or Moor and Indian.
Right. Right. So you see, let me ask you this, Tyrone, how many different fictitious identities do you see? I mean, just off the top of your head.
Well, let's rattle them off from the top of the head. The newest one, because I had to inform you, it's kind of off topic, but it's on topic. That Maroon movie. You got Tariq Nasheed now getting people to call themselves foundational Black American and Maroons and Moors, and he also wants you to be called an African.
So you see,
now you got African American, you got Black, Negro, you got colored, you got Hebrew Israelite, you got Moorish American, you got American African, or you want Negroes to call themselves Sub-Saharan Bantus and limiting your genealogy to some fake DNA stuff. You got people claiming to be Egyptian or Kemetic, Asiatic Black man. You got people calling themselves gods. You got people calling themselves Anunnaki and aliens and bays and elves and all these other things that ain't got nothing to do with a specific ethnicity. It's all
damn,
fabricated.
All of those?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
They
Everybody don't want to agree on one thing, which is calling yourself a specific Indigenous American word. That's from the territory that your family members came from, that they're most likely of, those indigenous people. And it don't even have to be the so-called 5 civilized tribes.
Right. What do you think it'll take for us to understand and realize that the majority of people or will they ever get it?
I don't think they'll get it until the last minute when Europeans start saying go to Africa and forcing them to go over there and live in a random designated spot that they tell them to go move to.
Interesting. Lisa, what do you think?
I mean, it's happened in the past. It's happened a lot of times in the past. They've tried to deport people from their own homeland to a place they paid for, or a place they've daggone designated that has nothing to do with you because you don't come from there. But yet,
have you ever heard of like the BAIO, Miss Cypress and Carrie? Have you ever heard of this Uhuru movement that they had on CNN trying to represent Black Americans teaming up with communists and trying to sell our restitution over there to African countries with this Dr. Ericana?
I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, you got these individuals on the internet by the name of Bomani and Kala. You have Dynas Demir. You had these guys like Afro Think Tank or what's that guy's name? American First Rifleman. All these individuals that get on the internet and try to convince our people that our destiny lies within Africa. So,
yeah, man.
One more thing. It's another one. It's Black and Red Indians. That's another fictitious identity that we like to use to try and appease them Native Americans. Black and Red Indians, saying that you're a hyphenated mixed breed and that you can't possibly be the original inhabitants of America.
It's all confusion, brother. That's all it is, just to bring confusion. And so listen, man, I appreciate you coming on, hanging out with us for the night.
You're welcome.
Cool, man. Talk to you soon.
Take care, Tyrone.
So is there some reality in what Tyrone was saying?
Everything he said was reality.
Everything, every drop, huh?
Everything he said was a reality. And the reality is that they have us like, they're dicing us up like on the chopping block into little bitty pieces, fractures of who we are, so that we can't get together and be
Right.
the people that we truly are, and claim what has been stolen from us. You can't really, if you don't know who you are, you can't claim a doggone thing. If you don't have your identity clear, you can't claim anything.
Yeah. And using terms that we're barely familiar with, using
Right.
terms like that to make it like you're something and you're not.
Right.
Remember that song? I don't know if you ever heard it by Bob Marley called Crazy Ballhead.
Mm-mm.
If you ever get a chance to listen to a song by Bob Marley, check out the song he got called Crazy Ballhead. It's on live. It's the concert version. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool cut. But anyway, in the song, he says, "You're running and you're running and you're running away. You're running and you're running and you're running away. You're running and you're running and you're running away. You're running and you're running, but you can't run away from yourself."
Okay. All
You
right.
know, and so to me, that's what all these cats are doing. All the groups that Tyron named, that's what it seems like it is to me.
Yeah, they're just confused. This is the thing. I think I don't know if they're purposely confused or they're misguided on purpose, because these older people that are behind some of like these fights for like the Muskogee and all that stuff, they're still stuck in calling them. You can't. It sounds nuts when you even read it. What they're saying that they are. When you say that you are an African descent, you're not an Indian, okay? So how are you claiming Indian rights if you're of African descent? It's like, I just want to shake them. Like, you're not making any sense, boo. Like, this ain't real. You're not making any sense. So I mean, in order to really be able to wage a fight against anyone, we must first clearly understand who we are and be able to define yourself within history clearly, without all these distractions and detractions from who you are. By saying you're a black Muskogee, what is that? There's no such thing. Historically, you can't find it. In 1866, that treaty does not, what is this? Did they define them as being black? I don't know. I doubt it. But the freedmen, to define a freedman, you have to be able to say you're a freedman, you have to define a freedman. If you think a freedman is African, then a freedman don't have rights. If you got to understand what a Negro is. If you think a Negro is an African, Africans don't have rights. Negroes are not African. Freedmen are not African. Freedmen are Indians. Negroes are Indians. Until you understand that these are all Indians, you're not speaking the right language. And you can't speak into the existence your rights in the courts or before anyone, because you're not in your proper identity. Anyone who says, "Oh yeah, I'm mixed with this and that," well, you're mostly that. If you're mixed with this and that, and then you're Indian, you're not an Indian. You're mostly the other stuff. You're mostly immigrant. You're mostly immigrant. If you see any of these people on the internet saying, "Oh yeah, I know I'm European and I'm an African, but it's a spiritual thing." No, it's not a spiritual thing. You are not an Indian if you're mostly something else. Period. If you're mostly an immigrant, then you're an immigrant. You can spiritually feel like you want to feel, but that don't make you an Indian, because you're mostly an immigrant. The majority of what you are is immigrant. That makes you immigrant. when you call yourself out of your name, when you say I'm black, what is black? Black is nothing. When you say you're a black Muskogee Creek, you are disinheriting yourself, because in 1866, they knew they were the Indians. The treaty was based on a common knowledge that the Negroes who were saying they were Indian were Indians. And the daggone Asians who were claiming they were Indians knew that the Negroes were Indians. That's why the treaty formed. But your dumb descendants got bewitched by the media. All the Western movies these dum-dums watched in the 1940s and 50s, they think they're black Indians. They're an alternative Indian. Your ancestors told you, we're the Indians and we're fighting for it. But in the 1970s, you watch Roots. You watch Roots, and you have a history of watching Westerns in the 1950s, so you let that stuff slide. And the daggone Asians and the eugenicists took your rights right from under you. And you didn't say not a thing about it because you were confused. Because instead of listening to your ancestors, you listening to some eugenicists that want you gone. You listening to the colonizers that don't want you to ever get your land or your money back or your wealth back. Gold, silver, copper, whatever. They don't want you getting your resources and your land back. They want you to be an immigrant. But when you fight as an immigrant, you can't win as an Indian.
Number one, because you have nothing to stand on. Aunt L, hey man, I'm putting the address to the chat in.
What question is he answering?
That's what I want him to do. Answer the question. Ask it. Because I'm not too cool on this writing and stuff. If you can just ask the question, but remember, I'm gonna ask you some questions too. Okay? So that's how we do, man.
StreamYard is sitting in. It's right on the screen.
He see it. He see it. So check this out. I know y'all gonna think I'm mean. No, I'm not. I'm just showing you this is how we roll. See, this is what we talking about, fictitious identities.
Yeah, with the foreign identity. Like, how are you changing? Just like all these people that are duped by you. You are being duped. You were duped by eugenicists to change your name.
So,
do you understand that the Europeans didn't even have last names till at the end of the 16th century? Did you know? Are you aware of that? They didn't have last names.
So
all this misinformation is not based on historical facts.
So what Mr. Ankh L is referring to, what is the nationality of the people?
I don't know what he is. What is who are his people?
Oh, he don't want to.
His people aren't our people necessarily. Like, I don't know what he is. He's an L. An L means he's a foreigner. That means he's from somewhere out in the Middle East, right? I don't know what an L is. That's not indigenous to America.
Right. What is the nationality of the people? Nationality, what I guess you can call this America.
Right.
From what's that? Alaska on down to Peru, Canada, Mexico, Central South America, Caribbean, South America, all the way down to the South Pole. That's the nation of America. Does that Does that make sense? Waiting for your return, brother. But anyway, Lisa, you were saying.
This is a continent that's made up of many nations. You have to know your people, your own nation. I'm an Accomack. I'm from the Accomack Nation. The indigenous one is Lettahatchee. He's of the Lettahatchee people. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know what your nationality is, but that's everyone's job. You have to know where your people are from, where your ancestors come from, where your history begins, where your history, your plan is. That's your work.
He's a Hotep Moor. His name precedes him. Ankh comes from where? Egypt. Ain't that what the magic wand is? The Ankh, and El is what that Moor stuff. What's that? Hotep Moor. Right?
Right.
Middle East. Now I don't know what you talking about. I'm telling you, dude, you a Hotep Moor. So if I seen your name on a piece of paper and I said Ankh El, what would everybody think?
Well, I'm sure what the Caucasian Americans see when they see that is a confused Negro.
Yeah.
They like when they see your name, if you got an L at the end, they're like, "Oh, we won. We got this damn brother under the mysticism of this daggone bullcrap that we put out there, and we fund for you to go fall for." See, the leaders of these identities are being paid by daggone eugenicists. Okay, they're funded by eugenicists. So when you fall in and claim these identities, Moorish American, then they win, because there's no such thing. You have no rights. You have no identity. There is no history. You're not in the records.
He said he's indigenous and Aboriginal.
You can't be indigenous and Aboriginal because you're a Moorish American. There is no such thing.
How can you be indigenous but you claim more?
You're not indigenous. Indigenous Moorish people, Moorish identity is foreign. It is an European identity. It's an African European.
Wow, dude. Wow.
You're everything that's not America. African European. You're not American. How is that? Well, I guess you shouldn't call yourself something that you don't understand what it is.
Right.
You shouldn't take on these identities and monikers when you don't fully understand that you're disinheriting yourself, your children, whoever else you have applied this false identity onto.
So listen, Moors are Aboriginal and indigenous to the planet.
That sounds ridiculous. That means nothing. That means nothing, sir. That is really the most ignorant statement I think you could ever make.
Yeah, man. Look, seriously.
Because you don't want to really think about what you've done to yourself. So you're just going to say you're indigenous to the planet. Really? What does that mean? What does that mean? Germans are indigenous to the planet. What does that mean? There's that Spartan weirdo.
Yeah.
Well, join the conversation, Spartan man. The link is on the screen.
Yeah. So the link is on the screen, y'all. So at least come in, let us hear your voice.
Right. If you are a real person.
I don't really feel like typing.
We're not at all sensitive. We got nothing to be sensitive about, because the difference being that you don't know who you are. You got to say crazy stuff like you're indigenous to the planet because you really don't know who you really are, which is really sad, which means you're believing nothing for those that come behind you except an empty identity, a blank, and you're allowing your people to be pushed around because you were foolish enough to be misguided by these fictitious identities.
Sir, if you're a Moor, shouldn't you be where Moors come from, uplifting your children over there
Shouldn't
in
you not
Morocco?
be in someone else's country trying to
Right.
take up space? Like, you should go back where you came from.
That's what I'm saying, dude. That's what it does.
You
All
know,
it does is cause confusion.
the Unc L needs to hit the link and speak up, because if he got any kind of guts, if he has anything to talk about, he should speak up on it. The daggone Spartan needs to go ahead and hit the link. Hit the link. Put your mouth in the conversation. Stop being scared of to speak up. Stop being a baby. Be a whole man.
Back up what
Man
you're
up,
saying,
man
man.
up, and back up what you got to say. Stop trying to hide in the chat.
32,000 Africans bought here annually over 400 years, equaling 12 million. No evidence of any slave ship other than Clotilda. Dude, they don't have no evidence of that.
There's no Clotilda, man.
They
They made up a story that they built the whole ship and damn blew it up. Or who does that? Who spends that kind of money to blow stuff up? That makes no sense. That, nothing. See, the truth has plenty of evidence. A lie is bare bones. They don't have nothing because it's a daggone lie. You can't make up nothing for a lie. You can't make up enough to make a lie true.
Well, with Ankel, we gave you a chance, brother. Come on and join us, man. We want to hear you. We want to hear you explain to the people how people who call themselves Hotep Egyptians, how are you indigenous? Tyron, what's going on, man?
Yeah, why he call himself El? That's a Hebrew word meaning God. That's their own equivalent of worshiping, what's his name, Asar or Osiris. So why is he calling himself some Freemason lingo instead of calling himself what his own family members call themselves? Because it's respecting your own relatives to go by what they gave you, your government name, instead of calling yourself some random shit that you picked up off some Pan-African or some Hebrew or more in prison. Because that's where most of these individual cats get their own names from. They rebrand themselves as X because they think their surname comes from slave masters, when really Europeans did not have, like you said, Europeans didn't have last names. So what they did, they called indigenous people that they were utilizing as their own workers or so-called slaves, if you will, chattel slaves. They would give them the name of what they described these people, what their professions were, such as millers, tailors, fishers, millers, all types of stuff. But what we don't realize, we think we get our stuff from, this person was mistreating me, he beat the language out of me, he beat my culture out of me with the forgetful tree circling me around the African tree and then selling me over here, and I forget what my name and my gods and all this other stuff. You can't erase somebody's culture by some magical voodoo practices or beating somebody, because it doesn't work like that. How they usually remove the culture and the identity out of people, they go after young children and keep them away from their elders so they wouldn't know who they were. And these people, that's what they do now. And I did research on that individual cat named Aloda Equiano. Me and my sister sat down and did his own Wikipedia search, and this individual, his name ain't even Gustavo. His name isn't even Oloda Equiano. He had many names. He went by Michael, and he went by Jacob before he came across the name Loda Equiano and Gustavus Vasa. And what we found out is this man, he was adopted by some Jewish people. He wasn't even a slave, but they claimed that he was a West African slave. What they did was they gave him a good education and they brought him over there to Africa to be a cabin boy and a colonizer and learn the ways of enslaving people. So when he got over here, they utilized him to go colonize the North Pole. He is one of the first so-called Negroes to explore the North Pole and to colonize it. And he was also sent down there to Latin America to go enslave Mosquito Indians because they said that he has an alleged African slave background. So he was used to pick out like so-called slaves for them to use in the Caribbean.
Well, cool,
And
brother.
so,
Well, thank you for that information. We're gonna keep the program moving.
all
Hey,
right,
well, look, contact me, man. We're gonna do a program, okay?
all right, most
Cool.
definitely.
Peace. Back to the fictitious identities. So one of the fictitious identities he just explained was some guy who he was talking about that is used to go all over the place and to pretend like he's something he's not. Remember, the fictitious identities just don't involve us. It involves other people. Would you say that so, Lisa?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree. We are they're demanding to be other people, and that's a problem. I mean, I think that, what we need to understand is that this confusion is there in our faces on purpose. Okay. And the fact that you got L's in there talking about what is your nation, what are you doing? You don't have anything. You've disconnected yourself from your own real family. How dare you even ask anybody what their nation is? Although we told you what our nation is. Evidently, I don't know. Maybe your head, you have no comprehension. You're not able to hear things. I don't know. But we said what our nations are. Our identity is part of our nation. Our nation is our identity. So, I mean, there's no secret about who our nations are. We've said it on the program. We've done programs about our nation. We've done programs about the research of our nations. We've done programs about how we are, repatriating our nations. That's old news. Okay. If you don't know who we are, maybe you need to look back at some older programs.
Unc L, what is Unc L? Let me ask you this, because you're not saying nothing, dude. And that's brothers do that all the time. Where you're from, where the Unc L's are from, what is the number one industry over there? What's the industry over there? Just tell us. Tell us that.
What do they make? Like what are they known for?
What are the animals over there? What's happening over there?
Yeah.
Because you claim that you're them.
What is the Unc L world? What is that world like?
Yeah.
What is the Unc L world?
And this is what I'm saying. This cat probably got kids. And imagine what they gonna get. Imagine what they gonna get. It's like the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. He's an African. His father was one of those Pan-Africanists. It's a joke. We going around here pretending that we people that we not. And we do it. We do it. You got the floor, Lise.
Well, this is not what I wanted to show, but the thing about them is the thing that we need to be aware of is that when you describe yourself as an African, you can't claim to be an Indian. You have to be clear about who you are. Like, it has to make sense. And when we do things that don't make sense, we can't We can't win that way. That's just the thing. If you call yourself an El Bay, you're making yourself a foreigner. If you're calling yourself an Unc El, you're making yourself nothing. You got nowhere to go. Who's going to claim you? Is there an L country? Is there an Ankh nation? What are you making yourself? And that's the problem that, you know, we see people creating for themselves. You're making yourself, you're deleting yourself, you're erasing yourself. And I don't understand why anybody would willingly erase themselves. And you're just unaware of what you're doing. You're ignorant of what you're doing to yourself. And that's dangerous because you know what? It doesn't mean anything to me. But your grandchildren, your children, your grandchildren, they're going to be pissed at you for messing them up, for misinforming them, for misdirecting them, for disconnecting them from their true heritage. That's the problem with it. It don't matter to me because, you know, I know who I am and I know that I'm directing my family in the correct way based upon the facts, based upon our true genealogy and bloodline. But when you've got folks that are misdirecting their families and making up all these crazy new identities, fictitious identities, they're going to look back at you and say, what did you do to us? And why? Why did you do that? They're going to be like, Grandpa was an idiot. That's what they're going to say. They're going to say, Grandpa was a fool. Why did he do that? Why was he convinced that that was the way to go? How did it make sense to him? How did it make sense for him to change his name to something that we're not? Why? That's what they're going to say. And you're not going to be able to answer them. You won't be around to answer them. But they won't have any answers. They're just going to be left out and confused. And that's what's sad about it. Not that you sit up there doing it, because obviously you deserve to be in your confusion and you're content in it, obviously. But what you're doing to those who can't help what you're doing and can't stop you, that's the shame of it. That's the problem of it. Is that part. That the damage that you're doing, that you don't have, you know, the foresight to even like acknowledge or see. That's the crazy thing. And then you don't even have the fortitude to stand up and be like on your square about it. You don't want to stand up and speak about it. You want to sit and hide in the chat. That's the other part that's sad. You know, be a man about it. Man up. If that's what you think you are, if that's how you believe, then at least be man enough to stand up and face off about it. Be that person. Oh, there's Spartan. Let's go. Carrie?
Spartan, welcome
Spartan.
to the program. Welcome to the program.
Mm-hmm.
Spartan Existence, you have the floor. Yes, C. Moses, we are still taking calls. Spartan Existence, where you go?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I came across your video, probably it is one. I came across your video probably around 12 years ago, on the earlier days of YouTube. Something that sat with me, half so-called African American and half Italian, so you might mulatto, but in speaking to my father, who goes back to the islands by way of Belize, he interrogated and recorded a conversation he had with his grandmother back in the early 60s. And this was around the time of the whole pro-African movement, when it really kind of picked up steam in the Americas, kind of after the civil rights movement. And she affirmed to him that they were not African, that he is not, he's dark-skinned, tall, long, long dreads, the whole nine. Affirmed to him that they are not African and there is no trace of any African lineage. So that was also something that really stuck with me. And then in doing so, I've done a little bit of research into this topic. Because again, I kind of find it utterly fascinating. And when you start to crunch the numbers, something doesn't add up. Something feels suspicious. And what I mean by that is somebody such as myself has came up, in the public indoctrination system, where they tell us, our ancestry started at slavery, full stop. So I'll stop there. I could keep going on, but you can react to what I just said if you'd like.
Ladies first.
I mean, he can go on if as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, I'll be happy to go on. So I'm kind of like working with a list of questions right now, and some of them were questions that you've posed yourself. For example, if Wikipedia calls us African Americans and enslaved Africans, before the landmass was called Africa, then who were the so-called Africans and what was their true identity? 2, why do the colossal Olmec heads look so much like Black people? And you go ahead and chime in and stop me at any point, but I keep going on. And then your question, where are the remnants of the slave ships? How does a vessel across the Atlantic carrying 300 plus people keep them alive? Wouldn't you want your product arriving in the best condition possible? Number 5, probably my favorite in the topic that question that I find to be the most interesting. Throughout European art, why does the nomenclature interchange in the iconography of the Blackamoor, Tobacco Indian, Moor, Native American, and Indian? In other words, why do they see them as all the same? I'd like you guys to talk about number 5, but I have a couple more. If we can circle back to number 5. The trade currents. We had Thor Heyerdahl take reed boats that he made, and he traveled from West Africa to the Caribbean just on a basic raft that he made. Number 7, I got this from a book, African and Native Americans.
Before you go on, let me answer that question. Okay. And this is what I'm saying.
Can I get off number 7, and because it tied in real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I apologize. So the last part that kind of ties in was there's something called I got this from a book by Jack D. Forbes, African and Native Americans, and there's proof that in the Caribbean islands, they had these things called on their spear tips. It was guanin metal, and it was proof that there was trade between West Africa and the Americas, because the alloy position of the spear tip was only found in the metallurgy of West Africa. And this was, again, pre-Columbians. But sorry, please go ahead.
You sure? You sure you have nothing else? Because this is what I'm saying, dude. They can write anything. They write anything. They write that the Egyptians are in the Grand Canyon. If you believe it, that's you. Some of the shit, most of the shit they say, I don't believe. Why? Because they lie all the time to keep their hegemony over you. Right or wrong? Do you think that's the intelligent way to go? They tell me what they've told you that came out in your favor.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Absolutely nothing.
So I'm saying, what do you say? You don't figure it out? You think your people came over here pissing and shitting on each other? I mean, you listen, there's millions of Negroes that believe it. I got it. That's what you think about yourself.
It's part of this. It's kind of like this. It operates on a lower frequency. It perpetuates victim mindset. It's this narrative. I'm not interested in a narrative that's rooted in upheaval and bound in oppression. That's essentially what the story is. It has to do agency, empowerment. It eroded that ability.
Hey man, you breaking up, dude. You breaking up really bad.
Let me. I don't know what you caught from what I just said, but
Nothing.
Nothing.
You can repeat it. I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I just my internet might be a little.
The reboats that you mentioned was not from West Africa. It was from Morocco. Okay, so I mean, that's not the triangular slave trade. It's not the same route as going from really Angola and West Africa, where they try to say they got us from. It's way south of Morocco. Okay,
Wait.
So that's nowhere near the same route. So I mean, so like, what does that really mean? That doesn't mean anything. As a matter of fact, there's been experiments by boaters that went from South America and drifted into across into the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Islanders have connections with the South Americans. I mean, that really means nothing. They try to use these things to support their eugenics, okay? And everything's about the land, man. They stole this land mass. And they are willing to do everything and anything to keep it from the indigenous people. That's why we're being murdered. That's why we're being put in jail. That's why we have all these laws. That's why they'll never give us reparations, because as long as we don't know who we are, they're going to do everything to keep this from us. If we were, immigrants and had no claim to this land, then we would get what the other immigrants get. We would get repaid for whatever was done with us, because we can't take nothing away. But the fact that we have the power to reclaim what is ours is what makes us the enemy, number one. And until we understand that, we're not going to understand why we're treated the way we are. We're not going to understand why everything is a barrier.
Can you hear me?
Let me finish. I said, we're never going to understand why there are barriers in our way in getting any kind of justice. We're not going to understand why others that are darker than us, others that look similar to us in some ways, can come here and succeed without any restraint, unrestrained, completely facilitated, given checks by the government. So they have a hand up when they come into this country. The Africans are given checks. The Southeast Asians are given checks. But they're trying to take everything away from the indigenous people. It's because of who we are, man. It's because of the land.
No, I see that as a main thrust that both of you talk about, that the fact that the so-called African American is identity deficient lends to the result of essentially what our conditions are right now. I think there's at least some truth to that. Like you mentioned, come here and they immediately are successful, economic success. The fact that they have a natural identity, or they're connected to their true identity. I think there's definitely some truth to that. I'm right now, I'm just at a place where I'm like,
Hey man, you breaking up.
You're
You're
breaking
breaking
up
up.
so much,
Dude.
we can't even
So
understand you.
listen,
But
you're
see,
breaking up.
Moses is in. We're gonna let him
I
Dude,
don't know.
get a better
you're breaking
connection and
up.
come back. Get a better connection and come back. See Moses?
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome to the program, man.
Thank you. Thank you. How can you hear me? Because that was hard to hear.
You sound really clear. Thank goodness.
Okay, good. And I appreciate you guys letting me up. I've actually come across your channel within the last couple weeks. So, and this is the first time I've ever kind of caught you live, but a lot of what I didn't catch his name, but whoever was before me, I think in some ways, and here's where I kind of wanted, I'll go on a little bit of a explanation of why I chose to come up and then end it with a question. But some of those, like I had some questions, not that I have them listed, but just from observing from my journey, just different questions that I kind of carry with me as I take in information post realizing that it was all a lie. And I say that because through school, something in me knew that we were being told a lie, but I could never find the people who knew or had the experience that I had. And to put that into, give you an example, like I grew up, say, in a suburban and around predominantly white people. I've also spent a lot of time in Black neighborhoods, but in terms of schooling, I can pinpoint, I knew early on that this was a lie, but then I was around people that like didn't have that same natural understanding of, I think, what pops out as a lie. And so I'll kind of, for the sake of getting into a conversation, I think I'll say through my experience, I've grown to realize that like a lot of people, whether or not they look like you or don't, like they just don't get it, right? So if they don't look like you, they literally wouldn't have some of the questions that I had. And to today, so fast forwarding to 2023, one of the things that I think, one of the reasons why they distract us is because, like you guys point out, they want to separate you from the land. They want to separate you from the government, from the news. They just want you to just give up on everything, and then they take over almost as though they have, but they don't have the same experience and conscience as us, so it won't ever actually work. So where I'm at now, as I see it more blatantly and can articulate it a little bit better, maybe not right now, but in my walk, how do you see the end goal of identifying people who even have the ability to walk in the manner in which we're supposed to go after, I'm going to say 100 years of just bold-faced lies? And because of that, you're now working with a demographic and a population that has just been so programmed, you can't even have conversation with them. So what's the goal in terms of finding those people that are thinking, that are conscious, how do you interact with them? And what's the goal of once you find that cream that was able to sift through all of the craziness?
Great question. And I'm glad you're here. And I feel encouraged by it. I'm like, I don't know. I know the Indigenous one is because he's been at this for so long, but I'm going to tell you like this. The reality is, because you're new to the program, you might not know, but my name is Lisa Cypress. And I grew up knowing that my, dad's people were Indian and we were Indian, blah, blah, blah. Both my parents come from the same place. And all my grandparents, they all do. And I've been doing genealogy for about 30 some years. And in doing that, I more recently started digging into my mom's ancestry. Now, my mom's people grew up on a plantation which exists to this day. It's Air Hall Plantation in Virginia on the Eastern Shore. The same people who claim that they built the said plantation house are the same people that live there to this day. My big mama grew up on that plantation, as do a lot of my cousins and kinfolk. So I assumed that we were African. My cousins had visited the plantation in the 70s and was asking about slave records in Africa and all that stuff. And he said he didn't have any slaves in Africa. He didn't know anything about that. But the truth is, he was telling the truth. That's what the plantation descendant said, now owner. So the reality is, as I fast forward to present day times, I'm digging into my big mama's genealogy because I've done my daddy's and all that and his old people. And come to find out that, yeah, we had first and last names. We were Indians. We predate that whole plantation thing. We were moguls. I have ancestors that had hundreds and thousands of land, going back and forth from England to Barbados, bringing people in. I mean, we were doing all kinds of stuff, working with the government, doing all kinds of stuff in the courts, like, these are the darker skin of my people. My grandparents are both very dark complected people on my mom's side. So I thought Africa, but there's no Africa. It's all Indians. Okay. And not only were we Indians, we were wealthy. And not only were we wealthy, but as I start, okay, so I get all this stuff. Now, for me, I'm not aware of the Indigenous one. I'm not in the internet looking for African Americans ain't African. I'm not doing that. I'm doing genealogy, straight genealogy, doing research for my family. So when I figured this out, I'm like, oh, shoot, we're Accomack Indians. We, there's,
But wait, because you said that you grew up knowing that you were from I
grew up knowing it was Indian on my dad's side, right?
So then the genealogy. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, my dad's side, we had Indians come to my grandfather's funeral from Florida. Part of his family, when they started doing the first Indian removal acts, like they actually left Virginia and went to Florida. A lot of those Cypresses became chiefs of the Florida Seminoles, which is the big Cypress tribe that's down there. I'm connected to them on my dad's side. They were Virginia Indians. Okay. So I got a real deep Indians, deep information. Like, it's deep. Okay. So my great-great-grandfather, who was younger than his brothers, he stayed in Virginia. He became Negro. He went from mulatto colored to Negro. His brothers went down to Florida. They will forever remain as they were, Indian. And then to this day, they're Indians, right? Those Indians in 1974, when my grandfather's funeral, I saw them. They were very darker than my grandfather, but they looked just like my grandfather. They came to show respects when my grandfather died. So I knew on my dad's side what was going on. But we were still like in our blackness. Like, we were like, whatever, So, but the reality is, that when I started to find out that my big mama, who I was like, oh, plantation, all that, my big daddy, dark, they're all darkened. And I start finding out that they really have all the documents that are connected with those Gingaskin Indians, those Accomack Indians. They both have all their genealogy connected with the reservation, with the Indians, with the court patents. They have all the documented Indians that's on the Eastern Shore. My dad's people were like off-reservation Indians. They didn't get involved with that reservation. They didn't get involved with that. So see, that's why I tell people that you have to go back to your real roots and understand who you are. When you look in the court records, like yesterday's, earlier program we did on Friday, where I went and showed you, because I collect the court records, the colonial court records. I have books and volumes of the colonial court records. When you start seeing a court record where a Negro filed suit against a white master in 1673 and won, you understand what a Negro is. A Negro is not an African. The man just worked for the daggone white man for 5 years. He sued him and got tobacco and flour and all these other different items that he wanted. And the guy had to pay the cost for the court. The white man, he sued his white master. You were not bringing African over for 5 years. There are no records of daggone African interpreters, only Indian. Find me a record of an African interpreter. You won't find it. But you will find many records that speak of Indian interpreters. The Negro is just a enslaved or servant Indian. That's all a Negro is.
So for me, and it's so obvious once you like see it, which is, I know that just sounds so blanket, but like it's almost hard to think that a generation, and it really wasn't that many, but it was a couple generations, did end up believing and going along with the narrative. But as I even think how back, because I'm still doing my genealogy, it's not that long ago, and it wasn't like they didn't go to school as long as we did, so they just were like, oh, brushing it off. But the storyline doesn't make sense, is what I'm trying to get at, and I have a very similar like account, in the sense that I thought, well, I knew that my mom had some native in her growing up, and so when some people would say, oh, what are you mixed with, I got that because of my hair texture. Or
we don't say native. That's the other thing. We don't say native because native is something that the United States came up with as to identify the Western Plains Indians, because they are Siberian mostly, and mostly Asian, as from the gold rush and the railroad. These people are not indigenous to America, and they know it. So they always tell some truth in their lies. So when they call them native, it was on purpose. It was to let them know, we know you're not indigenous. That's why we'll give you something, but they really don't give them anything, because they keep them like slaves, because they're not official. They're just a part of the misinformation, right? They're a part of the matrix, okay? But that's why we don't use native, because we know the difference. We know that they didn't meet the Plains Indians until after 1806, when Sacagawea showed them, and her husband and another Negro servant directed and protected them so they could find those Western Plain Indians and find the route to the Pacific. They wouldn't have been able to do anything, Lewis and Clark. None of this happened until after they brought all of Europe in here to beat our butts.
From every angle.
They beat our butts on that Revolutionary War. That's what it was. They tricked us into saying, oh, we're going to get you free from England, we're doing this. But the real plan was a united plan of the Union of America, which the United States is a union of Europe, right? The Union of Europe got together and whipped our butts. It gave them the ability to bring every country in here at once and get us. And that's what happened. So right afterwards, what did they do? They started making their deals, making their bargains with their fellow Europeans, and taking over the daggone continent.
So that's a great account, and I think that is still their game plan to dead in 2023.
Well, I mean, this is a union of Europe. That's why any European thing that pops off, they get involved with it. That's why they will give reparations to anybody from anywhere in the globe, because it's a union of Europe. It's not the United States. It's not a British colony. It was always a union of the Europeans' colony. So when we have a better understanding of that, you can actually understand the things that happen and why they happen like they did. And they participate in fake wars and genocide all the time. Now, they were trying to wipe out the Jews in Europe, and America sat back and let it happen. They waited to the very last to get involved. Now, that's why the Jews have America, the so-called United States Corporation, in a chokehold. Because they were like, yo, we know what you did. We know it was a conspired plan. We know you took part of it. But it was an ethnic cleansing that was planned by all the Union. The Union wanted the Negro, not the Negroes, but the Black Europeans gone, and they wanted those mulatto Jews, Sephardic Jews gone. And so that's who was cleansed. That's what it was. And everybody sat back and let it happen. And they know it, but they called them on it as a united front. And that's why they're powerful all over the place, because they are in full knowledge of their identity and what was done for them. And they're going to state it. We know what you did. And that's
who's powerful? Who are you giving power to?
The power of the Jewish community in America is that they actually claim what has happened to them as a united front. And they've called the union on what they did, what they conspired to do to them. See, we do not know who we are. So we cannot unify and call the United Union on what they've done to us, because we're all over the place. We're African, we're Hebrew, we're Els, we're Moors, we can't get it together. But if we got it together as a people and said, okay, we're the Indians. Oh, we're the Indians. We're not from Africa. We're not Hebrews. We're not Moors. We're the Indians. Now, you took our land. You took our resources. You took our gold. You took our silver. You have been benefiting off that for 400 or 500 years. You owe us everything. That's what should be done.
So I'm in agreement, and I'm going to jot down just so you guys could do your thing, because sometimes it gets me going and I just keep going and going. But I don't think it's been 400 or 500 years. I think what took place on this land as it pertains to the group that you're saying is in power, that's in the last 100 years, starting with.
Well, let's see. It was been done gradually. So we always have been winning, okay? Because let's say we didn't have a part in this. We wanted to make money, okay? We were moguls. We were moguls before they got here, and we were trading with the world before anybody claimed their fake history, okay?
Agreed.
We knew how to make money, okay? The laws that are in this country, if you listen to some of our bills that we've done, I bring out the laws. I read the laws. They have said that the laws that they found our laws here to be agreeable. The English found our laws to be agreeable. We had our own courts. We had our own laws, and that's why there are Indians standing up in court. That's why my people fought for their land in 1640. We knew how to work the courts because we made them, okay? So that's not the deal. But the thing is, they started to bring in their way of doing things and enslaving us from very early on. The first way they got us was just having us war against them and war against each other and turn each other in as slaves. Okay. So the fix was in various ways early on, but you got to understand throughout the fix, there were still Indians who were winning. Okay. I'm not saying that we weren't winning. We always have Indians that are winning even today. But the reality is the fix was in for them to take over. The fix was in for them to economically change the trade where we didn't have the tobacco. They wouldn't accept the tobacco. They wouldn't accept that as a trade for items. So we were in debt. They created debt bondage. I mean, they had mechanisms. They created laws, the slave codes. They created mechanisms from the early 1600s. So they were working on getting control early on. So, yeah, we can't just claim 100 years, but the worst that has happened to us has been after the Civil War, when they really were taking the land away from the indigenous people. It wasn't about freeing nobody. It was about stealing from the indigenous people, destroying our land, burning our property, and giving it over to the poor, Europeans.
And I think to add, so what I was just saying, when it comes to the last 100 years, it's really just the transition or the rising of the fiat currency. Because if you think about before that, all of our wealth, as a land and everything, like alongside of just economy, like when you are working with real money, then you can't fake the funk for that long. When you put fiat in, you're literally just printing money, and then you're handing it off to and Tom, Dick, and Harry. So all these people that have printed money, now that it's digital, it's an easy funnel into the corruption and all that stuff. Previously, without as much technology dependence on it in general, you have to know the land, you have to have resources, you have to have strength, physical and intellectual. Like, it's just a completely different game. So, and the last 100 years, I think, has been to their favor, because a lot of the stuff that we see, whether it be through TV or whatever, is just not real. So it's fake money, it's fake entertainment, like fake a lot of stuff that is only being able to, people are being fooled, because I think it's because of fiat. You could just print it so that the repercussions of the government bailing out another bank, that doesn't work in a real economy that's working. Like, you can't do that. But
that doesn't mean anything, because when you're actually your people and you can stand on your square, you request what you want. You request your land back, and you request your gold and your silver. You know what I mean? You get what you want. You get what you would negotiate to get. But you got to get to the point where you actually are in your right identity first. Okay, you can't do anything if you're in the wrong. If you're calling yourself Black and African and L and Bay and all these other things that aren't you, you can't even get to that point. And yes, we are very impacted by media. We believe the images that we see. It's probably a real deficit for us, that we actually really believe what we see. We see what we believe what we see, but at most of what we're shown is a big fallacy. And until we start detach ourselves from all this mysticism and mysticized media, then we got to understand that. We got to get free from that. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me up. I'll be tuning in and probably doing this more as things you guys discuss kind of just get me going in this manner. But I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I'm kind of like, I'm not new to it, because like I said, I've always had this feeling that it wasn't right, but it was on us to get it right. And obviously all signs and everything is leading to that time being now. And it's like, I'm finding out who those people are. And so finding channels about people that are having a different discussion, as you mentioned before, is hopeful for sure. I'm just making sure that I'm aware of the goals, and also doing my other homework when it comes to genealogy. And so I can, as you said, stand on my square, because I do have some land and I have some things that well, I don't want to say apparently, but as I'm doing more genealogy, I'm discovering more about the story, my people being in South Carolina, who was there, so on and so forth. So these builds are important and are not for nothing. They're headed somewhere.
Cool. See, Moses, man, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. And you're the kind of brother, and those sisters out there who are like that too, that lets me know we not gonna fucking lose. So I really appreciate your presence tonight, brother.
You'll see me soon, and you're right. You're not gonna lose.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
All right, peace.
All right. So, so that's what I'm saying, Lisa. Listen, with all the bullshit that's going on, with all the cool shit Negroes do, I like to hear brothers like these, speak, because they got ideas. They're thinking about stuff totally different from what I'm doing, but it's on the same vibe. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's really encouraging to see people waking up and, making things make sense, or looking for things that make sense, making their way out of this confusion. They have to, I'm very encouraged in seeing, people starting to put two and two together and, actually saying, okay, yeah, I get it. This is very encouraging. It's really good.
Okay, so before we go, I just want to ask you a question. What were the main fictitious identities that was flowing around when you were growing up? That you were supposed to get trapped up or tripped up in?
Well, I think the Black is the primary one. We got, and we had, they use the media, they use the music, they use the media. Black and I'm proud. You had James Brown whipping us into daggone furies over, yeah, we Black and we proud, and that kind of thing. And then you had Roots, where the first time, see, we are very influenced by media. We see, our couple colors on the screen, and it does something to us. We get excited, we get inspired, and it does. It took over the TV. That never happened before. I mean, not like that. And every star that you could think of, even OJ was in that thing. Okay, they wanted to make sure that they took control of our thinking. Okay, even though all the time the people producing it are knowing it's a lie. The writer knew he had plagiarized it, knew it wasn't his real family. He's running all around the daggone planet talking about this is his family history from Virginia, and it had nothing to do with his family. There was no Kunta.
Okay, but to be fair, weren't we warned about him at least a generation before?
Well, I don't think a lot of, I think in retrospect we could say that, but I think as a 10 or 12-year-old, whatever I was,
Well,
10 or
yeah.
11-year-old, no, I was not warned about Alex
No,
Haley.
I'm not.
You
I'm
know what
not
I mean?
saying you. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying like the generation before you.
I don't think so. I don't think my parents knew anything about Alex Haley. I know that for a fact. I don't even think my sisters.
I'm not even talking about them. I'm talking about, I mean, like somebody in that age range growing up had to see what his involvement was with Malcolm X.
I don't think so. I don't think my family, you see, this is the thing. We in retrospect, we look at Malcolm X like, he's this big figure, just like we look at Martin Luther King. But in the reality of the commonplace people, a lot of them were like Jesse Jackson. Like, they weren't pivotal in the right. everyday lives of most Negroes. They weren't. Right. So people weren't really researching them down and thinking about what is Malcolm X doing. My parents weren't doing that. If they saw something on the news, that okay, they saw that, but they really weren't really thinking about what's really going on with Malcolm X. Nobody was doing that in my family. I can tell you that for a fact. So a lot of these people that, as we study them, study them, and they make movies about them, and they make all these different, documentaries about them. They become larger than life. They become larger than what they were at the time. That's what people have to realize, that a lot of these people have been magnified in time. And at the time, people were mostly living their regular lives. When everybody was running down south, you want to think that everybody was running down south in buses and shit, but that wasn't everybody. That was a few kids at a few universities, okay? And most likely it wasn't even anybody in your family, and all this, marching and all that stuff, that wasn't everybody, so right. That and if it didn't really happen in your family, it wasn't really discussed, or it really wasn't thought about that much. They might mention it while they, playing, cards or something briefly, but then they're on to the next thing. It wasn't as pivotal as people think. When you roll back the time and you go back to the 60s and you're sitting in the daggone kitchen listening to folks talk, it wasn't as pivotal as what you might imagine. So that's why we can't, these things that happen, it happened in, it's happening in how they write the history more so than in the reality. It's how they record it more so. In the reality and how they record it are very, very, very different. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So that's what they do with everything. They're going to record it a certain way. They're going to make it bigger than what it is, because a lot of it, they want to hype it up because they want you to feel like, wow, we were really in a bad situation. They really got control over us. Oh, they really did, oh, we really were being used. Oh, we really were against each other. Or we really, they want to paint the narrative. So historically, they go back and paint it for us, even though it really wasn't even like that.
So what about these Black Creeks rallying for tribal citizenship? What is that about?
So the Black Creeks rallying for tribal citizenship, these folks, the interesting thing about them is that, okay, they're supposed to have a hearing in April, right? And they've been talking about it, but this is what they say. Who are we? Black Creeks. Who are we? Black Creeks. The crowd chanted during the rally at the Greenwood Cultural Center. Why are you a Black Creek? Why are you a Black Creek? You already are separating yourself from your heritage. Many of the participants traced their roots to the Muskogee Creek freedmen. What freedmen? People of African descent, they say this, who were either enslaved by the Muskogee Creek Nation. Oh, they're slaves of the Indians. Lived among the Creeks as free Blacks. What's a free Black? So now you're saying that you're Blacks and Africans who were listed on the Dawes rolls as interracial Creeks.
Damn.
We all know the Dawes rolls is bull. Like anybody who knows anything about the Dawes rolls, any of those rolls that they made up is made up by the United States government. And that is bullshit. Right? They put on there who they want to. Bunch of Asians, bunch of Irish, bunch of Scottish, make them chiefs. They did whatever they wanted to do. When after the Revolutionary War, they did whatever they wanted to do. So now you are claiming that you are Black and you're a freedman and you were listed on the rolls as interracial Creeks. What does that mean? To me, it means if I was a Muskogee Creek, I would say, you ain't me. And where's the proof that you're interracial? Where's your Creek bloodline? Where's your genealogy? That's what I would say. Then I would say that being a slave of a Creek don't make you me. I would say that. Being a Black or a freedman don't make you a Muskogee Creek.
So, Lisa, how do we get caught up into this? I mean, these people who you are showing on the front page here, they look importante, got the suit and the tie on. How come these cats, why are they always tripped up by these fictitious identities?
They're stuck. See, this is the thing. They're riding on a treaty that was done in 1866. In 1866, their people knew they were Indians. They were not under any misunderstanding. And the fact that they listed them as interracial that's just that racist stuff that white folks do. They try to sideline you. Just like when I was repatriating my people, white folks try to tell me to call myself a descendant of an Accomac while they was calling themselves real alcoholics. They're going to try to tell me to call myself a descendant of. I'm an Accomac. All my grandparents are Accomac. How am I a descendant of? I am. That's what I am. I am what my people are. See, they tried to minimize them back in 1866. If they actually called them interracial on the Dawes rolls, I don't know if that's a word they're using now or if that was a word. I doubt whether they actually used the word interracial on the Dawes rolls, but the fact that they are changing their identity to Black and making they don't understand what a freedman is. See, they have a misunderstanding. They don't know what a freedman is. They think a freedman is an African. They don't know what a Negro is. They think a Negro is an African. They don't know who was enslaving who because they don't understand a freedman ain't got to hang out with nobody. They're free. They don't understand who they are. And how are you going to rally or fight for anything when you can't stand your ground and state, look, they are actually Siberian. They actually have actual full Chinese lineage from the gold rush and from the railroad bill. They are natives. I am an Indian, an American Indian. My people are Negroid in appearance always. They come from the land. We are copper colored. We have big noses, just like William Strachey described us in 1612. We have big lips, just like he described us back in 1612. I know who I am. I am a Muskogee Creek Indian, period. You want to call me a freedman is Indian. You want to call me a Negro's an Indian. Whatever you want to call me, make sure you're calling me a Muskogee Creek Indian. And you ain't got to add no black, no freedman, no Negro to it. I'm a Muskogee Creek Indian, period. That's how they need to be standing.
Why isn't that even brought up? I mean, you have all these so-called professors in all these universities teaching all these youth this confusion. That's what they do for a paycheck.
The reality is that they have people that are there to misdirect them on purpose. And there are a lot of nations, a lot of so-called nations that are using this whole, yeah, we're African, we're this and that, but then you're really not Indian. If you're everything else, you can't be Indian. You're more of the other stuff, which makes you an immigrant.
Just that plain and simple.
Literally, they said our noses were broad at the ends. Don't literally get stuck on noses. That's why we mess ourselves up. Why we get stuck on dumb little things. Stop being distracted. The point of the issue is that we have to understand who we are. We have to understand what a Negro is. We have to understand what a freedman is. We have to understand what a Native American is versus what an American Indian is. We have to understand by saying that you're Aboriginal, you really don't have any documented information to support that. There's not an Aboriginal nation. There's not an Aboriginal tribe.
They're not a village of people calling themselves a certain names, certain identities that are in the court records. And as long as you keep coming up with these terms that are written nowhere in history, you won't be found there. Your children won't be found there. You just spout out at the mouth, and you won't even change when you see it.
There are records for the Nottaways, the Chickahominy, the Rappahannocks, the Pamunkey, the Nassauataks. There are, at least mentions of protect them, something about the land being set aside in the colonial court records for all these Virginia nations. But all these nations have bowed down and said, we're Native Americans and we want to be part of your BIA. They are telling the government, please recognize us. Please pick me. Which is insulting because the United States Union of Europe Corporation does not have the right to recognize the true American Indians. They don't have the authority to say who's an Indian. The fact that you have these people that are trying to fall under their guidance and their daggone supremacy is sad and embarrassing.
Do you two pay taxes? What? So this is how I'm gonna give it to you, and this is how I look at it. Mama missed. Mama missed. Oh, I like that. Mama missed. Do you pay taxes? Why would you pay taxes to a corporation that came here after your people were already established here hundreds of years before they got here? Why would you do that? Mommy missed. Why would you pay taxes to a corporation that tells you paying taxes to them are voluntary?
You don't really have a right to do. You really the biggest the way you can actually have your full rights as an indigenous person is by being in your repatriated identity. There are things you can do under your nation that you can't even begin to understand, because they know you have those rights. They know that you have that authority. But if you don't know it, you can't do anything about it. You're going to keep on begging and Mother May and I.
And being scared.
And being scared to stand up, because you can't stand up against these people and say, I'm Black and I'm African, but yet I want to be an Indian. That doesn't make any sense. I'm a freedman, but I'm calling myself you. Well, what does that mean? You know, they need to be clear so they can teach these people who have been miseducated the truth. You can't go in there with their gibbly gobbly lies, because it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. So let me understand this. So you're a freedman. What's that? But you are a slave. So what is that? How does that make you an Indian? Like, if I'm a European listening to that, it doesn't make any sense to me. If I don't have any understanding of the lies that have been told, I'm not going to understand it. I'm not going to know how the dad going to support you and what you're asking for, because I'm not going to understand what you're asking for, because you don't understand who you are. You need to identify as who you are, Mama Miss. The point of this is that you need to find out what you are. What Indian are you? What is your real nation? Being you can't pass on being indigenous to your great grandkids, and that's going to do something for them. They ain't doing nothing for them.
Who are they?
Who are they? You find out which nation you're from in Mississippi or in wherever you're from, your people are from, and then you got something that you can repatriate. Then you got something you can tell them that they are. Then you got land that you can actually connect yourselves to. But calling yourselves indigenous, that's the whole point. It's a dead end. We have to move forward further than that.
And these concepts are kind of hard for us to get. I mean, listen, it's just like I tell the people who ask me, do you want to hit a bullseye, or you just want to hit the target? Get the bullseye. Who are your people? All these county got courthouses.
You chase your people back to Cherokee, South Carolina, but you don't know that there's Cherokee Indians and there's other sub-tribes and other names that are specific in your county. You haven't looked at that? You hadn't looked at the rivers and the daggone towns that your people come from, and the daggone trees and the hills and everything where your people come from, and looked at what Indians lived in the county that your people come from? Found out people have collected the names of the Indians that lived where Cherokee. I think I helped somebody get their repatriated name. They were somewhere close to Cherokee. They contacted me. You got to be the people. Oh, you were killed off. So you killed off? Yeah, the Accomacs are killed off. They're not killed off. I guess they're killed off too. But I'm here. And so are about 8,000 others of us. Yeah, we're killed off, all right. If you exist, you're not killed off. And if you know what you are, you need to call yourself by what you are. You need to repay and take it a step forward and actually Become who you are. Repatriate. Organize yourself under 5031C, under the people, your nation that you are. Gather up the people and kinfolk that are in that county, that are in those damn censuses, that are your kinfolk and cousins, who have the right to claim their identity as the Indians that they are. Not just indigenous. We got to do more than that.
Hit the bullseye. When you hit the bullseye, you're going to learn a lot about yourself that you didn't know.
Yeah, you got some more studying to do, because you got too many things. Catawba and Choctaw, it's a lot. So, I mean, you got too many broad things going on. You got to get down to your county, your towns that your great-great-grandparents were from in the 1700s. You got to get off to the real. We got to understand. We got to understand the importance, you know. It's all fun, you know, like people be looking at this indigenous stuff like it's a hobby. Like, yeah, I know, I'm indigenous, da, 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 da. Like, it's like, you know, watching travel videos, or, you know, looking at, the celebrity gossip. It's not that. You're talking, this is bigger than that. Because you may not think it's important to you right here and now, but you need to leave something for the next generations. More than just a vague indigenous, or we might be Cherokee, Catawba, or Choctaw. No, you need to leave them a platform to jump off of. At least you need to do that. You need to leave them a base, a foundation to work off of. At least do that. If you don't do anything, at least do that. Give them research deeper. Give them some answers. Talk to your ancestors. Find out the truth. Go there. Commune with your daggone land, your people. Go to the graveyards. Go to the churches. Get to know your folk. I tried to repatriate you don't need your father to repatriate your extinct nation. In fact, it really should be your mother's nation anyway. But you don't need your father to repatriate your extinct nation. You can do it yourself. He ain't got to be involved with that. You don't have to be interested in that. It only takes one. It's only gonna be one. You can reach out to me on acamac.com, .org. I'll put that in the chat. Sorry. Just send a contact to me on the website.
April Dawn, you say your mom is Choctaw. I bet when you get down to the nitty gritty, find out the county she's from, you get closer to the truth than you think you are. And that's what I'm saying. That'll change the whole way you see things. You know, remember, the rivers and the streams were like the main highways that's going cross country today. See, a lot of your people were into shipping, like she was talking about how we used to trade with Cuba and Canada. We used to ship stuff out through the waterways where you live. There's all kind of rivers and streams all through America. That's where some of your people used to work. They used to ship some of their goods to other places too. You got to know that. Just knowing there were a bunch of people, a bunch of Europeans who came and said they were the 5 civilized tribes and picked 5 names and called them that doesn't mean that's you. That doesn't mean that. Go to the counties where your people are out of. Though all these counties have courthouses. I'm sure you're in them. Yes, there's been some that's been burned down. Yeah. A lot of records have been lost, but not all of them. North Carolina was hit particularly hard. But find your folks, man. You know, and I know you hear them calling you. You know everybody's dropping that Africa bullshit like a bad habit. It don't make sense no more. You better find your folks. You still have mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers who are still alive. You better talk to them. Take a tape recorder, take notes. They got some information for you. Get your uncles, get your aunts.
See, well, people just take on these names. So they call themselves the Sumter tribe of Cherokee Indians. So they just took their little area and said they're the Sumter. Okay. So that's the same thing that you should be doing, Mama Mist. You should be saying, I'm the whatever damn road or whatever daggone town, or the whatever, I don't know, whatever the little town or county or whatever the name, whatever little name you find about your people, the Cherokee Indians, or you could say Saul Indians, or whatever you want to do. But you need to Sarah, whatever you want to say, you need to do that. That's what you need to repatriate. The names that vibrate with you, the people, the names that that resonate with you from your ancestors, you need to put that together and form your nation. That's how you do it. It's very simple. But just calling ourselves indigenous when you know better is not enough. And that's what we're trying to teach. Go ahead.
And when you start calling yourself the names of your people who they truly are, watch what happens.
Right. And when you start connecting and speaking the names of those ancestors and going back home and communing with them and communing with the land and standing on the land and touching the trees and putting your bare feet on that ground, the ancestors are awoke. They are active, and they are waiting for you to plug them in, tag them in the game. But we can't tag them in when we calling ourselves black and we calling ourselves freedmen. Things that people that don't care about you called you. They gave you those daggone misnomers to deceive you. That's what the eugenicists said. They said, go out there and say, black and you're proud. Go out there and do a song about it. Get them people riled up around that. That's what the eugenicists said. Call yourself a freedman. Then you got all these leaders saying, yeah, say freedman. So they trying to push that agenda. Anything but you being your true identity. Because they know when you start speaking your true names, talking out your true ancestors' names, claiming your true last names, your true first names, your true identities, identifying your real people, that's when you will be empowered.
They waiting for you.
Are they fighting each other? What's going on?
No.
Well, don't do that. I hope they're not, because seriously, ain't nobody saying nobody's not. Whatever. They're not. Nobody's saying anything. What we're saying. Let's focus on the fact. Let's focus on the fact that what we need to be doing is reaching into our own genealogy, reaching into our own ancestral homes, looking and researching very carefully. A lot of times you're going to find out more. You ain't going to find out a lot from the internet because they know y'all are waking up. A lot of stuff is not on the internet no more. Okay? That's a fact. A lot of stuff's not on there. But they know, because they know you're waking up. But a lot of the stuff still you're going to find in little libraries, little bookstores, and some of these little towns. Some of this stuff's going to be in libraries and bookstores right where you live right now. That's going to have information about your people in South Carolina. But although you may not even live in South Carolina, you look local to where you are, because your ancestors are going to put things where you can find them. So don't think you got to necessarily go there to find it. You can go around the corner from your house and maybe find stuff about your people, your Choctaw mother's people. But you got to have a mind to look for that. You got to have a mindset to look for that.
Then when you look for it, it gives you a whole nother perspective on who you are. Because whatever you think you are now, what you've been taught in the school system, in these churches, these schools, whatever, is not. When you pinpoint your folks, like I'm saying, when you go to these towns, you go to these counties, and you go to these courthouses in these counties, and you go look in these libraries and bookstores and all this stuff that she's talking about, you're going to have a brand new perspective on yourself, and it's going to blow you away. So, Lisa, any last talking points you want to hit?
I also want you to look, like there still may be some maps that have Indian tribal maps for South Carolina or, you know, Tennessee or whatever you're looking for, that they still may be available if you know, kind of look for them. Like I said, some things they're taking some things away, you know, that weren't there, that were there before, but there's still some things available. So, you know, look for those you know, Indian maps that are also around, you know. That's also something you might want to look for, because they do exist. And, you know, also look at the videos. A lot of people are into that topography, to maps and stuff like that. And a lot of these old fogies, they do these videos about, you know, different maps. I would also look into the Indian, you know, those kind of, you know, videos and stuff that people are just like sharing different maps, because you might happen upon an indigenous American Indian map that you'll find helpful. That's something else you might want to do. Look at some of the auction sites where they're actually selling some of these antique maps at. You might find an image of a map that's helpful for you at some of these auction sites. Another thing you should do.
And you know, one thing you got to keep in mind too, when looking for your folks, keep in mind the dates of when your ancestors were there. Was it the 1850s? What was going on in the 1850s around the time that they were there? What were they doing? Like I say, what was their industry? What was going on where they lived? Was there a war going on? Did your people have to get out of Dodge? What? These are questions you have to ask. It all doesn't just fall into a nice little net.
Right.
Because some people living in these 13 colonies were trying to get out of the colonies because they were treating the Indians. They were doing their tactics on the Indians. So a lot of people left those places. Where did they go? Remember, everything everything west of the 13 colony was free. The Indians were still, you know, moving around free. Were your people in that area of the world? Were they in Oklahoma, Mississippi doing there? Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, all that up there. What was going on up there? These are the things you have to know. Everything just doesn't fall into a nice little story like you're given all the time. That's not how it worked. So on these stories, you really have to look into, what were your people doing? What was going on? What was your mom doing? Women normally didn't move too much because they had the children. What made them get up and go? You got to Ask them questions. And you got to find the answers. It's up to you. Nobody's going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. Lisa's not going to tell you because we don't know. You got to know that instead of talking all this bullshit, trying to be all these different identities to get you more confused. Who is your folks, man? It's simple. It's not hard as you're making it out to be. Start with you or your children. Start with your children and just go back from there. You're not hard to find. So, Lise, that's all I got, Lise.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the maps that there used to be a lot better maps that you could just Google really fast. A lot of this stuff is hidden, but you may have to go to like the, some of the back webs, kind of stuff. You might have to do some digging. Like I said, you might need to go to some books. You need to go to some books to find it. Go to the library, go to your local library. Find out this information. It's still out there. It's just that, like I said, they're not putting it all out there like they used to because they know people are actually looking. They're actually trying to find answers. And so they don't want you to be able to find the answers easy anymore because there's too many of y'all that are awakening to the truth. How do you have to repatriate yourself? Didn't I say you need to first figure out what your name is, who you are, what your name is, establish what you are. You find out your indigenous identity. Do some research because you might have an idea of like, oh, my people are from this part of South Carolina. But what was really going on? Look in the records, find out where your people were, find out if your people, whatever land they may have. Anyway, as you find out the actual name, you got the first thing starts with you deciding who you are. You can't establish nothing if you don't have no name, Mama Miss. That's why I told you. Calling yourself indigenous is not enough. You need to figure out what your people's name is. You figure out the name, and then you can actually organize yourself as a 503(c). You organize yourself as a 503(c), then you could form a tribe, have your daggone tribal, your constitution. You can have your daggone council. You can have your tribal trust. There's lots of things you can do as a nation, but you ain't nowhere near that. I can't answer questions when you're not anywhere near to even knowing your name yet. You don't know your name. You're not there. Until you have a name, you're not there. You haven't done that. So got to get the first steps first. And that's when you have to figure out who your people were, where they were from, what their name was, and that's the name you repatriate. What do you mean? The info I sent you. Get info. I don't know what you mean. The info on the info I sent you. I'm not sure what you mean. You might need to message me later. Does anybody want to come into use the link? Because it's hard to read all this stuff and it comes off weird in the recording because I'm reading it and people don't know that me and myself and the Indigenous one are silent and we're reading the chat. They don't know that. So unless you want to if you want to have a conversation, come up and have a conversation. But talking to the chat, it just comes off weird in the recording because they may not even be able to be looking at the chat. They may not know what questions you're asking. And unless you are speaking to us, it really doesn't come across well. So if you have a question, please come on stage and say it. If you sent me your information months ago, I probably responded because I usually don't not respond unless I was at the summit or doing like something really active. But if I didn't get it, then you can send it again. Okay, so basically, this is the thing. So people, I mean, I'm, people contact, and a lot of people are interested in, repatriating. I haven't really heard from a lot of people that I have, helped try to figure out who they are or whatever. I think a lot of times people just don't do anything with it because it's work, and it's a lot of work, and people, they like to talk, but when it comes down to it, it is a lot of work to do by yourself initially. But if you, at least, like I say, like maybe you don't go as far as, what we're trying to do, and you just start a foundation. At least you have a foundation. At least you have something to say to your children, grandchildren, that, okay, this is who we are. This is why we are this. This is the history I found on us. These are our ancestors that make us who we are. Like, if you have that much of a foundation, at least you give them a platform to work off of. And that's good. The baptismal record said that she was Opalosa. Okay, that's good. That's cool. So yeah, if you have, baptismal records, Bibles, whatever you have, like whatever you can find, that's going to help you to find out who your people are. That's awesome. But it's important that we take those next steps and don't get stuck on being a spectator. Like, it's not a spectator sport. We got people that are out here actively trying to keep you from moving forward. And that alone should motivate you to do what you need to do to actually work for your true identity and your true inheritance. All these things, like, you got all these people putting out all this fake information, making you think that you're a Black Indian and you're a freedman and all this stuff, going to court when they don't have a clue as to who they are. It looks ridiculous, but this is all to confuse you. These people are confused. They're not helping anybody. And they're trying to confuse everybody else. Talking about it's restitution. You don't understand what you're talking about. It's what do they call it? Reparations. They call it reparations. It's reparations. What are they, slaves? Or what are we talking about? I thought they were Indians.
And they're not going to even be able to prove that. So you heard what they're doing.
I don't have a 678 number. I don't even have a 678 number. I have a 404 number.
Here's Mama Miss Cypress.
Hey, how are you doing, Mama Miss?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How y'all?
Good.
Good.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I was wondering how you get in here because I didn't see you when I came in. It wasn't no link posted. That's why I was typing. And it seemed like there was some confusion as whether or not I knew who my people were or something, like, from what you were saying. And I'm like, well, I'm typing exactly where they're from. And, so I've done the paperwork. I've done the research of knowing where my people are from. What I'm looking for now is to know the steps to take in order to live in my sovereignty.
You got to know your name. You have to have a name established. You got to know what your nation is before you can.
Yeah, and so okay, and so that name, they were the Shara people. That's the way it's pronounced.
Yeah, but there's a lot of you're not the only person using that name, right? So because you're not the only people using that name, then you have to define yourself a little bit better, which means like getting, like we were saying, getting down to your people, the county, the town.
Yeah.
Because in every nation, that's why I said nobody, like, a lot of people be like, oh, I'm a Pamunkey, but the Pamunkeys won't let me, or I'm a whatever, Nottoway, but they won't let me in. Whatever, they don't have to. Because the reality is every nation has tribes and sub-tribes. So it's just a matter of doing deeper research into who those people are and which sub-tribe is where your people were located. That's why I say you need to have your name and your name.
Well, I know the name. That's how I found out where we were located, because I'm going by.
That's, like I said, that's a broad name.
I'm saying I know the name of my actual people because I did it from my mother to her mother to her mother's mother, 8 generations back into the 1700s.
What's the name of your nation?
The name of the people were the Shara people.
I said, but that's a broad term. I don't want to keep saying it over and over again.
Oh.
That's a broad nation.
Okay.
So I'm saying, I don't know if you're hearing me. It's like,
no, I hear you, but then you say you go from nation to name, and so I'm thinking you're asking about my actual people's name, my blood relatives' name.
No.
So I'm like, of course I would know their name.
What I'm saying is what I just said is that for the Shiraz, that's not the only name for them.
So
there are sub-tribes, there are bands and clans, there are other names that are more specific, that relate to like what the Indigenous one says, that relate to the creeks that near where you live, that are related to the different land formations, that are related to the bands and clans of your specific family. So that's what you need to get a little more specific for your family and where they were, and like dig in a little deeper in your research of the Shiraz, so that way you have that. And then as you get into that more, something's going to resonate. They're going to let you know what's the right, who they are. But you got to get kind of deeper into the content of who were these people and what were their various names and sub-tribes. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So, I mean, we're talking about the 1700s. We're not talking about 18 nothing. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? So, we're talking about before the United States of America even existed. That's how far I've gone back on paperwork.
Yeah, but that's not unique to people that are indigenous and repatriating. That's pretty average, right? So that's good. Okay, that's good. But like I said, the fact that you've gone back that far, that's right. You're indigenous, but let's get your name. So when you and then this is what the other thing you need to look at. Look at the court records. Look at the county records. Go look into land patent information. Look at some of the stuff there that connects to your family also, because when you organize yourself, you want to make sure that you are including the things that pertain to your family. Don't miss out on anything that is your heritage. It's important you get down in it. Now, a lot of these colonialists, they're obsessed with us. They're anthropologists that are obsessed with us. There are local historians that are obsessed with us. And they keep not only our artifacts, but a lot of information they have about our tribal leaders. They know where they're buried. They know they got artifacts. They got everything. So that's also, you might want to look into that sort of thing.
Yeah, like I said, I did go to the cemetery of where one of my ancestors is buried. So, off in the country.
Right. Well, that's good. But keep doing that. And also, like he said, like he talked about baptismal records, church records. Some of these old churches have records as well. That's also another good research. And also some of these funeral homes, they got some records too. So I get that. So, so doing the research, to further know yourself is good, but we're doing this as also to properly identify ourselves and also get what's rightfully ours. Yeah, but you got to know what's rightfully yours. So that means you got to dig more deep.
But if you know if you know that you are an Indigenous American and not a citizen and not a servant, you know what I'm saying? Then, what are the proper steps to take You know, after you identify your people, you're saying that you register yourself with the U.S. government for a 501c3.
Yeah,
Is
after
that
you after you identify what your nation's name is, and you see, this is the other thing. It's not enough for you to see, because in reality, you're saying you're becoming a tribal leader, and you're going to be the expert of your people,
okay?
right? You know what I mean?
Okay,
Because really, I mean, like for me, like I have a court case that I'm suing for land against the county and against PNC Bank, right? In order
gotcha.
to have a genealogy based court case, I got to be an expert of who my people are. You know what I mean?
Right.
I got to know, you got to know your genealogy. You got to know your history better than those colonialists do. And trust me, they know our history. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
your understanding of who your people are has to surpass them. That's why I say you really got to know not only your people, but you also got to get your name right, and you got to make sure it jives with your people, because you know there's so many people out here that aren't doing it right. When you do it right, you got to make sure you really do it right. So that's why
Well,
I'm saying,
that's what I'm saying. I started on paper from court records from myself to my mother, who was in Mississippi. So for me, growing up in Gary, Indiana, I just knew my roots were Mississippi, and so knowing that they were Choctaw, because my grandmother still had land in Choctaw County.
right?
You know, when I was born in the 80s.
Okay.
But as I went further and further back,
Mm-hmm.
and I went into the 1700s.
You saw where they migrated, where they
Yeah, they were.
where they exiled from, probably exiled.
Yeah, well, they had been in South Carolina,
Right.
and stayed in South Carolina, going up and down the Olegechee River.
Right.
April, we know each other. April, follow me on my Instagram, so we can talk, because we can do this work together. You know, that's real good. Gary, Indiana in the house. So yeah, you know, so it's not like I don't know my family name.
No,
Or
nobody. I never
yeah,
said that. What I'm
yeah,
saying is that this is the thing. You got to understand. Just get your real deal, because you don't want to have no conflicts with no other freaking Sarah Indians, and you don't want all that. You don't want to. You don't need that. I'm just trying to
right.
avoid that. And so
Mm-hmm.
if it means, like I said, it just means a little bit, like I said, getting down into the Indian information, getting down into the sub-tribes, forming yourself as a 503(c), as the identity of the people that you are, forming yourself as a council, getting your constitution, and then you have to inform the government that this is who I am. Okay, you form your affidavit. There's steps that you take, right?
Mm-hmm.
To reclaim your identity, right? That's how
Mm-hmm.
you do it. And then the thing about it, and then there's even steps beyond that. You can inform the government, the police, the Homeland Security. There's various steps you will take, but you have to make your declaration. You can't declare without having your name fully formed and your organization fully formed. That's why I'm saying that's a step.
Okay, so basically, what you're saying is you make yourself a business. That's what it sounds like. You make
Because
yourself a business under a tribal name.
because you're dealing with a corporation, right? What is the United States? It's a
It's a
corporation.
corporation. It's a company.
You have to deal with them like they deal with you. You're a corporation dealing against, or dealing with a corporation. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I mean, that's the thing. Like, I've been doing this research for years, decades probably. I started out. I was born in the 80s, so I was born Black, and then while I was in school, it changed to be African American. So I went into school in kindergarten Black, and by the time I got to high school, I was African American. And then I wanted to study African American. I wanted to teach African American history in college, and went to Purdue, and they put me in political science. And I'm like, what is that? What's political about African American history? And I found out that the political thing about it is you're not African, and if you claim African American, you're neither. That you're the hyphen. So yeah. So I'm just like, okay, if I am an Indigenous American, then I shouldn't have to move like a slave. And I want to know how
Right.
I maneuver.
And let me tell you, and as you actually declare yourself and get your, see, this is the thing. They know who we are, and they know when we know who we are. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, most
People,
definitely.
that's why the Black Muskogee Creek are getting the runaround, because they're not very clear on who they are. They don't have a full understanding. They're still, so they look at them like they're ridiculous. That's why they play these games with them. But when you really know who you are, they just block me. A lot of my information is blocked. A lot of what I do, but my folks are intimidating because we have real history. We understand who we are, and we have the historical documents to back it up. So when that happens, what you can do is, like, you don't even understand what you can do. You have to be brave enough to understand what you can do. So the fact that we had a person that had, cocaine charges against her, and we were able to say, no, we stand up as her nation in support of her, that's the kind of thing. So when you see, HEMOC or some of these people that form these fake nations, he can't get his own son out of jail in Tennessee. He can't keep his son out of jail. He's too busy running around in daggone, where is he at? The Virgin Islands, trying to get some land out of people that ain't his people, instead of dealing with Tennessee on his 2 feet, if he is indigenous to Tennessee, he should be able to daggone manage things in Tennessee, and they shouldn't be able to manhandle his child. You see what I'm saying? That's when
totally. And that's the other thing is, like, you're doing this work, you're doing this research, and you meet these different people, and they claiming that they're indigenous and they got a tribe or whatever, and then they want to swindle you and stuff, and so it's like, hold on, let me sit back. You can't, and that's been going on for quite some time. So it's not like I just got this information. I've been on who I am, but just like, you got to worry about the wolves out here, because these people is definitely taking people's savings.
Right. So, and this is the thing, and they're all being funded and backed by this union to try to keep us all confused and keep us from moving forward. But it's the steps are actually very simple. And they're, and over here at the Indigenous One, you're only going to get what's the truth. We're not going to swindle you. We ain't trying to get your money, and we ain't got no secrets. What we're doing, we're just real people doing real work. We're real people doing real work, frustrated that we're doing it by ourselves, that ain't nobody else out there that we can commune with, because everybody out there got these fake social organizations, and they're not dealing with their real family and their real kinfolk, and they're not repatriating the real people that they are. So they really can't get any real remedy. You can't get a real remedy if you aren't really dealing with your real lineage and your real homeland and your real actual names. You really can't. It's not the same. They may be able to be tax free. They are doing that. They are doing it. I can tell you a lot of the Aboriginals, a lot of the people they've been not paying, a lot of them folks been not paying taxes for years. Okay. They claim their Aboriginal, Indian, whatever, American Indian status. And they have been doing that, but that's about as much as they doing. And that's about as much as they're satisfied. And they may be getting a little grant money to do this and do that, claiming this for their cultural group or whatever. So they're getting a little grant money. And a lot of these people are satisfied with that. They're good with, I got a little grant money, little seed money to start a business or to start their organization, and they get another little grant to do some education, or they educating all their grandkids, and they good with that. That's a get over for them. They're happy with that, but they're not freeing the bigger people. They're not reaching out to the people that they don't know, who are on their censuses, that are their kinfolk. They're not freeing the people, the original people that your people come from. And that's what the goal should be.
Okay.
You get it?
Okay.
I would never block you. I would never try to mislead you. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm very encouraged by you. I'm so excited, and I respect the work that you've done, and I'm excited for what you've done, and I look forward to seeing you the rest of the way through. It's very good. So just
I want to make sure I got the right Instagram here. That I just followed is Akamaki Indian.
I'm yeah, girl. I'm not. I'm
That ain't
old.
you.
I wasn't. No, it probably is, but I'm born in the '60s, so I'm not really on my Instagram like that. Like if you contact me with akamak.org, it'll give me a message.
Okay.
I'm not really on. I honestly.
Okay, I got you. Well, it does have that pinned on there, akamaki.org. So,
okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
You could get me like that. That's the best way to reach me.
I'm mostly on Instagram.
You be trying to hit me up on Instagram. You ain't never gonna reach me because
I have a Facebook too. I'm right there in the middle. You know what I'm saying? I think they call us a zillennial. You know, I'm right at the beginning of a millennial and the end of the whatever. Girl, I'm some. Yeah, I'm all of that.
Right.
Thus the name, Mama Miss, Mother Mystery. You feel me?
That's good. So. Yeah, I'm happy for you. Like I said, whatever kind of information you need, like I said, I'll share whatever I can with somebody who is earnest and wants to do the work and get the answers and seek remedy. That's what it's about, man. I'm like, we ain't in this, but to win it, and. I'm encouraged by people that really sincerely are trying to do the right thing. And
I'm definitely doing the right thing. I'm an artist too, and so I in my songs and my poems, everything, my music, even I do comedy too. I'm always talking about how we are from here. We ain't get here on no boats. If it was boats, there'd still be boats. You know what I'm saying? You can't. All that's a big lie. We have different looks than the people of Africa, or what they call Africa. You know what I'm saying? None of our parents or grandparents ever said we came from Africa.
Right.
These so-called founding fathers didn't even bring their wives or their children over to the New World. So how would they move 1 million big black folk from that? You know what I'm saying?
They don't even want
to lie.
They don't work that hard. They ain't trying to work that hard. They don't try to work.
It's just the nonsense that the boats didn't even have motors.
Right. So they would have to have a whole row of rowers at the bottom in order for those things to even make it over there with that heavy cargo. Like sails wouldn't do it. It's just so ridiculous. It don't make no kind of sense. Nothing makes sense. Yeah, nothing makes sense.
None whatsoever. So
yeah, but that's good. I want you to go to Anta and Anta. What is it? Carrie? And Anta.
AAA.com.
Right. Go there.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
What we need to do is start sharing this information as well. Like your skills as being a comedian and also being an artist, that we need to also share our skills with each other, because we start to grow our economy. We need to be self-sufficient amongst each other, and put each other on. That's what we do. Like, for my summit, I use one of my cousin who was, studying comedy and practicing comedy, come and just, do a few jokes for the folks. You know what I mean? We got to put each other on. We have to encourage each other, build each other up, and what I say is we sow into each other. We put our money into each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
All right.
Definitely. Okay. I got you.
Wonderful speaking to you.
It's nice to talk to you guys too. So, but yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram or whatever. So, I just need to know how I can get in contact with you guys so we can, figure this shit out. Cause it's just costing us a lot. It's costing us a lot, basically. It's costing a lot of us freedom because, they locking us up for just our spirits. You know what I'm saying? And that ain't fair, And if they don't lock you up in their jail system, they lock you up in their school system, which, you know, that just gels your soul. And it's sad when um you see brilliant young people learn how to be slaves, learn how to be niggas. And you know, we done with that. You know, I'll be a naga before I be a nigga. I'll be the serpent fire. You know what I'm saying? Before I be yo nigga.
Right.
You
There
know,
you go.
I'm done with that.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Carrie, dear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I say, man, it's excellent to see people getting into themselves instead of something else. And I think it's also a trip where you hear everybody South Carolina. That South Carolina, Virginia area must have been a hotbed, because you can tell all
Oh,
the people who've been moved.
mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
It is fascinating. Even you got family in South Carolina, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, last words, Lisa, take it away.
Oh, I'm just encouraged. I want everybody to stay encouraged. Um, to understand that we are actually crowding out the lies. Like you are doing it. You are crowding out the lies with your truth. They can't keep harping in things that don't make sense. And the more of us that have a true understanding of who we are, the more of us who speak the truth into existence, their lies are going to just dissipate because they got no credibility. It has no foundation. So I'm encouraged by all of you. I encourage you that there is more that you can do than just make this a hobby or just and you can seek remedy, and it's not complicated, and it can be done, and you're only steps away from doing it. And there are honest people here at African Americans Ain't African who will help you with that. Okay, go to AAA Enter AAAinta.com, AAAinta.com, and there are people that can help you. We got real information, real remedies, real processes. You can do it.
So, it's just as simple. AA, African Americans ain't Africans. AA ain't A.com. Listen, you're closer than you think. You really are. I think with all these names and identities that we out here playing with, we're really further. That's really pulling us further away from who we really are. And like I tell everybody, do you want to hit a bullseye or you just want to hit around the target? So when you hit a bullseye, when you get close to who your folks was, then the lights really come on. So we want to thank all you guys for joining us tonight. We're going to be on later on in the week. Also check out our other YouTube channel, the Indigenous1 and Guest, because who knows when we'll be getting kicked off of here. So thank you guys for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.